How's it going, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another movie review. Jake is back for the second time in a row with another movie. We had such a great time reviewing Iron Claw that we decided to come back for 1999's Varsity Blues. We actually did a 15-minute version of this on Jake's channel for a larger project he was working on. And we had so much fun, we decided let's do a long-form movie on this channel. So, Jake, thanks for being here again, man. I look forward to this.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this too. This movie really has been ever since I watched it. I was like wow! It's so good that it's just been like circling in my head for like the past like couple weeks, and I didn't expect to like it so much, but I did.
Yeah, we kind of come from like two sides of the spectrum for this. I've seen this movie more times than I can count. Jake just saw it for the first time, last week. So it's also the perfect time to do this because January 1999 is when this movie came out. So this is the 25th anniversary review of the movie, and time flies. Some things don't age as well as you'd expect from a movie, that old, and some things it's just as good as you remember. But like I said, two different kinds of the spectrum here. Jake, with the first time he's seen it more time, I even rewatched like half of it today before we get into this. So let's get right into it here. First of all, what made you pick this movie for your 1999 project? Where you just wanted a sports movie thrown in there? How did that one get picked that sparked this whole thing?
Well, I kind of had no choice because in the project, I'm reviewing every movie that I can from the year
Okay.
1999, no matter what the genre or what the quality is. And as of this recording, or as of this, as of this recording, I've recorded and edited the episode that's going up on Friday the 19th because I'm dropping these every Friday in 2024. So by the time this airs, that episode will be live. And so I'm taking 2 or 3 or 4 at a time, and I'm saying I'm dropping them on or around the time that they were released in the year because they're not being released on the exact date. The dates
Sure.
don't align. So I'm just
Mhm.
saying on or around this date, this movie came out. So it's kind of like a thing where I chose the project. I'm like, I kind of have no choice. I got to cover pretty much everything or as much as I can. So
Right.
Varsity Blues just so happened to be among the ones that I had to do. And when I started watching it, I was like, okay, like I'm a big fan of sports movies. I get it. This is probably going to be good. And like I said, I didn't expect it to be that good. So it was a very, very pleasant surprise for me. I was expecting, because I love like Hoosiers and I love like the
Mhm.
Disney sports movies and Greatest Game Ever Played and like say Remember the Titans, and I like football movies like that. But this was like the good kind of like kind of the bro sports movie, but it also was deeper than that. It was a
Yeah,
delicate balance, but it worked.
like I remember explaining to you, like, because you asked me, like, what am I in for, basically, and I'm like, I pretty much called it Friday Night Lights mixed with like Major League. Obviously it's a high school team, not a college or pro or whatever.
Mhm.
So and there's so many high school sports movies, right? It's easy to make them. You don't have to worry about being accurate because you just pick a random small town, base it out of that. This is West Canaan, Texas, where football is a way of life, which becomes one of the most overused phrases in sports movies. I don't know if this started it, but it definitely made it popular. And it's just one of those movies that, like I said, some things you look back and you're like, oh, that doesn't age quite as well as I would like. There's a couple of nicknames for people that I'd rather not continue to say. There's a whole scene about one of the main characters says like girls are just panty droppers. I'm like, could have done without that, looking back on it. But other than that, it's really a lot of clean fun. There's some serious moments in this, of course. So let's get right to the overall theme. That's usually the first thing I ask. This was the last thing I could figure out for this. And I have a way of life movie, and it also coincides with like an anti-authority movie because the way this movie takes place, the Val Kilmer is the coach, and he's like evil personified, and it's just a classic case of this is how things have always been done here, and nobody can question it. So to me, it was a theme of like just because things have always been done this way doesn't mean we can't change it. So that's like the overall theme that I got from it. What about you?
I agree with you, and it just hit me just now. With a theme like that, the movie kind of reminded me of a movie called October Sky. I don't know if you've
Oh
ever
yeah,
seen it.
love that movie. Yeah.
Starred Jake Gyllenhaal and Laura Dern. It was based on a true story about Homer Hickam, who would become a prominent person at NASA. He basically had a hand in Mercury, Gemini, and the Apollo space programs. If something was sent into space from the late 50s to the early 70s, Homer Hickam had something to do with it. The movie is basically based on his book. It's his life story. The movie takes place in a small town in West Virginia called Colwood. There were two paths for pretty much every man. Football player, ironically enough, considering what we're talking about, and coal miner. 9 times out of 10, you were working the mines for about 30 years till, in the words of Dusty Rhodes, they kicked you in the butt with a gold watch and say, "Computer took your job, daddy." But with October Sky, the main conceit is that Homer Hickam doesn't want to work in the coal mine, and so he turns to basically rocket science to it starts as a hobby, but then it's like, this is my ticket out of here. The main character, Mox, in Varsity Blues, he grows up in a life of football is basically your only way out of this town.
And I don't even know that it's like a way out. Like, people are proud to have not left. Like, yeah, if you're good at football, like Harbor is going to go to Florida State and everything. But aside from that, like, everybody still lives there. They talk about their times at the high school. It's almost worse than, there's only a few ways out. It's like, basically, high school football is going to be the highlight of your life, which is a really sad existence when you think about it.
Exactly. There's this joke in a Jeremy Johns video. He reviews movies where he talks about a movie feeling like a high schooler at like a 20-year reunion still wearing the Letterman jacket. Like, cool, that was a nice time in your life, but it was 20 years ago. You gotta mature and move on and all of that.
They actually make a joke of that in one of the high school parties. A guy shows up bragging that he's like class of 1980. So this is a guy that graduated 19 years ago, still trying to sneak into like high school parties. So that really like hammers that point of it home, I think.
Yeah, it's low-key very sad because for certain people in this town, this is all that they're going to do. They're going to grow. They're going to graduate high school. They probably won't even go to college.
Right.
They'll get a job in the town. They'll marry a girl that they've known their whole life, 2.5 kids, and they'll basically grow old in West Canaan, Texas. They probably won't even leave. Mm-hmm. So it's low key just really sad when you think about it. And the movie is fiction. It's not based on anything true story wise, but it feels very real.
Yeah, ironically, very relatable. It's almost to an extreme where there's not even stories of people leaving the town. So it's really like, for some people that grew up in a small town, this could have been like your worst nightmare. It's something to that. But if you're trying to look at the sports side of it, the romantic side of it, it's a town that, I don't know if this started the cliches of like the town shuts down on game day and you can't even get like a cup of coffee because everybody's at the game. I don't know if it started that, but it just continues with that cliche. And like a part of it is romanticized, right? That it's, you can positive twist it to where like, this is a town about community and like really supporting, their school and their team and things like that. But there's a pretty crazy list of characters in this. From the coach we already talked about, Moxon, Clay Harbor, played by I'm slipping on it right now. Fast and Furious guy,
Paul Walker.
Thank you. A young Paul Walker, and of course James Vanderbeek, which this is probably the peak of his stardom because Dawson's Creek is still rolling along. He does this, like, this is probably as big of a name as the Beak gets, and then this is definitely one of those things. But to me, this one's easy for least favorite character and favorite character. Least favorite's got to be Coach Kilmer because he's just evil personified. And that actor just doesn't know any other way. Like Mr. Sir in Holes, right? He's just, no matter what he plays, you're just like, God, this guy is the most evil person on the planet. So he's easily the least favorite for me.
Yeah, and we were talking about how the town and like a town's a character in itself and no one ever leaves. I get the severe energy that Bud Kilmer was someone who like maybe wanted to leave like some time ago. He wanted to like maybe go on to like the college or even the pro level, but he tried and failed miserably. And so he came back and basically said, you know what? I've already set myself up here. I might as well just lean into the skid. And he says in like a pep rally at the start of the movie, like I believe 2 state titles and like 23 like region titles.
District titles. Yeah.
So yeah, he's done very well for himself, but the movie does a good job of like showing that he's not everything that he says he is. He gives these speeches of these boys I'm going to turn into men, when in reality he has the temperament of like Arlie Ermy from Full Metal Jacket. Like the dude just, he doesn't care about the well-being of his players. If you really think about it, he just cares about the W, which is
Right.
what he ultimately wants to get. I mean, poor like Billy Bob, which we will touch on in just a few minutes. Like
Hmm.
Billy Bob just gets emotionally wrecked by
And
this coach.
physically wrecked. Yeah,
Exactly.
physically and emotionally wrecked for sure. You mentioned, I was going to bring this up later, but I'll touch on it now because you touched on it. He brags about 23 district champion, or 22 going on 23, and 2 state titles. And maybe I'm spoiled by watching Coach Eric Taylor and Friday Night Lights. That man won state twice in 3 years. So to win it twice in 30 years, not the flex you think it is, as the kids say. So
Yeah,
I find it like way to aim for the middle, like a district championship. I mean, the way it works in Florida anyway, your district is like 4 to 5 schools. So all it takes to win a district is you have the best record of these 4 or 5 schools. It's like winning your division in the NFL. Imagine if imagine if Bill Belichick bragged about winning 20 division titles and 1 Super Bowl, because that would be like the equivalent of that in the NFL. So I just thought that was a weird flex with that, and it just shows like this guy's not right in the head. So I'm glad you touched on that because I did want to bring that up.
and the movie does a good job of not exactly telling, but showing some of the very seedy things he does. Like he literally gives his athletes steroids,
Yeah.
like on a couple of occasions. Like the reason the Paul Walker character gets injured is because he takes steroids for his knee, and it costs him big time.
Mm-hmm.
And he tries to get another character, the African American character, I can't remember his name, to take steroids, and literally the entire team's like, if you give him steroids, we're walking.
Yeah.
So it's just, so like the movie does a good job of like showing that this guy is just a prick without
Mm-hmm.
exactly telling.
Yeah, but you, like you said, there's plenty of examples of that being the case. So it's like he runs away with the title of least favorite character. I think there's an argument you made about like the town itself is just very toxic. Like no success. Like Moxon is about to go to Brown, which is an Ivy League school, and his dad's like, "Yeah, man, that's great, but we got to talk about Friday night." So that really
That
just shows you
that scene crushed me. Like when he's like reading the Brown letter, full academic, and he's like, "That's fine, son, but we need to talk about Gilroy." And like Mox just is like, "Tell me who wins," and he just like storms off. I'm like, "Yeah, good for you, kid. You know,
right.
you've got all the possible momentum. Like, screw this guy." I mean, it's your dad, but I mean,
Sure.
not actually, but you know what I mean.
So I've seen this movie a million times, so I've had time to overthink this. I don't know that you have, but like Brown was such an odd choice. Like was him going to Harvard or Yale too on the nose? Like were the writers like, give me a smart school, but not like too smart. You know what I mean? Like Brown is very like, it's Ivy League, but then it's like middle of the Ivy League. Like what does a kid in Texas want to do Brown of all places?
Maybe it
And
was a
again, that's me
rights
just
thing.
overthinking it, but
Maybe it was a rights thing. Maybe they approached Harvard or Yale to be like, and they're like, "Oh, we want to be in an MTV movie." Yeah, like no thanks. And Brown
right.
was like, "Sure, free publicity for us."
See, if this movie comes out like 10 years later, the answer is going to be Cornell, because it's famous from Andy from The Office,
The
always
Office.
bragging about Cornell. So Cornell would have been perfect here, I think.
Exactly, I agree.
So for favorite character, also a runaway for me, is got to be Mr. Charlie Tweeter, played by Scott Conn. A year before he stars in the masterpiece Ready to Rumble,
Ready to run.
this is a guy that I don't know why he didn't become a bigger star. I don't know if Hollywood was too much for him, but like Tweeter is a cross between Wes Welker and Charlie Sheen, and he is a 5'0" wide receiver that somehow is his team's whole offense. Like if they're throwing the ball, it's going to Tweeter, and even on the field, he's like, there's guys that are twice his height guarding him, and he just breaks them down, makes a catch, and his jersey's never tucked in. He looks like he's wearing his dad's clothes out there, and he's just tearing people up. And he's like not the most PC character. Like I said, he had the whole panty dropping monologue in there,
Yeah.
but otherwise, just a hilarious dude. He steals a cop car. Just this movie. This movie needed that comic relief, or it's just a straight up depressing movie. I don't think people realize how clutch he like single handedly holds the comedy up in this movie.
he has this attitude of just being like what are the cops going to do? Like, I'm a legend in this town. I'm untouchable. So
Right.
it's just like he is a PR disaster waiting to happen, but he's also the life of the party. It's a delicate balance, but the
Yeah.
movie does a good job of achieving that delicate balance.
Like at one point they're at practice, and I think it's after the panty drop monologue, and Mox is like, "Tweeter, do you think you'll enjoy prison?" And his only response is, "I don't know." Like he doesn't go like, "What are you talking about?" He's just like, "I don't know, maybe we'll see what happens." So what would be if he's off the table? If I'm taking him in the draft, who else would you say is your favorite character in this movie?
I mean, the easy answer is Mox,
Yeah.
but I think I want to go a little harder and I want to go with Paul Walker. I
Mhm.
liked his character because in any other movie he would be the star. He would be like the dude, like the local legend. And that's kind of what he ends up being, but the movie goes deeper with him on that. He gets injured about a quarter of the way through
Yeah.
and his star becomes a little diminished while Mox's star skyrockets. And it's like the dichotomy of Paul Walker's character really wants what Mox has, and Mox does not. So,
Right.
like, Mox has it but doesn't, and Walker's character doesn't have it but wants it. And
And
then
it's
you
like if
got,
Mox was in any other town, he'd be the guy. But because
yes,
he's where Clay Harbor or not, yeah, where Lance Harbor is. Clay Harbor played for the Eagles. Lance Harbor, that's the only reason. It's that classic case of like the backup syndrome. And I'll say this: I think the reason Lance Harbor can be so likable is like he is the jock, but he's not the dumb jock. Like he cares
yeah,
about his teammates. He cares about Mox. Like he's a likable guy where he could have easily been like the prick captain. So they do a good job avoiding that. There is no real, and I think it's because like the coach is such a bad guy that they're left like no room for a player to be unlikable to. Every player in this is at least sympathetic and likable. Like the running back could have been disgruntled because he's which he is, but he only takes it out on the coach. He doesn't take it out on his team. Billy Bob could be like a bully to the other players. He's not because he's the biggest guy or whatever. And they don't go into detail with a lot of other players, but I think the coach is that evil that it leaves room for no one else on the team to be unlikable.
exactly. It's like Bud Kilmer is the power vacuum of evil, and everyone else is just virtuous by comparison. And I say virtuous in air quotes, but
Right.
like virtuous for the context of this movie.
Virtuous, like you still stole a cop car, but you're a good dude at the same time.
Good, like wild soul, but a heart of gold, I guess.
Absolutely. So let's stick with the characters for a minute. Most impactful side characters. I have three. My first one, I'm going to leave up to debate for you. Does Lance count as a side character because of his shun to the background a quarter way through the movie, like you're saying, or is he in the movie too much? I think it's up for discussion here.
Yeah, it's kind of a coin flip because I see where you're coming from. He does go down injured a quarter of the way through, and it's basically the road to recovery, and then it becomes Mox's movie.
And he's in like
However,
four scenes maybe after that. He's in
yeah,
the strip club. I think he's in this. Oh, he's on the sideline at the big game at the end on crutches. I don't maybe two like he's so it really diminishes. But if the movie front loads him too much, he might be disqualified from this one here.
yeah. But I want to hear the other choices though.
So the key here is I say most impactful side character. So because of
Yeah,
that could be impactful positively or negatively. So I'm going Mox's dad, who's just this like anchor against like happiness for his own son, both of
yeah.
his sons. The other one's just trying to like research every religion that exists, I guess, and he's not happy about that either. So like it's the like we'll talk about least favorite scenes, but he's at the forefront of it. But like all the positive things that he's like the anti-tweeter in this movie, like all the fun things that Tweeter does for you in this movie, he makes you uncomfortable. And then the third one, which is undeniable, is Bacon the pig, which is Billy Bob's pet. He's only in like two scenes, but he's hilarious, and I love they feed him beer at one point, and to where Billy says, "I love that dog," and so I gotta shout out Bacon there too. So that's my three.
Yeah, that's a good choice too. But I think Mox's dad is definitely an underrated choice because, like I
Mhm.
said, talk about the Gilroy scene. But then the scene at the cookout where it's Harbor's dad and Mox's dad, and
Yes.
they're like playing the William Tell game, and like Mox like hits him like square in the face with the football. I'm Like, yeah, that was a cool moment there too.
Yeah, that's actually, we'll jump right into least favorite scene and favorite scenes, and that's where I was going with Lance's dad. The cookout scene, it annoys me. For one, it's uncomfortable, and it makes people like, oh, like, it spoke to me because, like, so I grew up playing the drums, my dad grew up playing the drums, and there has been moments we've been at places and my dad will jump on the drum set and then he's like, Phil, come play a song. And I'm like, I didn't come here to play. Phil, come play a song. So that part spoke to me, but it wasn't to the point where it was to show off. It was just, we're having fun playing the drums today. But when Harbor's dad wants to show off and he does what he calls a button hook on 3, to where he takes one step to the right, turns around, barely catches the ball, and is praised for it. That whole thing was a sloppy mess, which I hated. And then when Mox's dad goes, he at least runs an actual route. He runs a slant, but he runs the slant right into the fence. Not much Mox is going to do about that. So that was annoying. And then just the whole, like, it's like the dick measuring contest that didn't need to happen. So that's like the pinnacle of his dad being, this like putting pressure where there doesn't need to be pressure. So to me, the two go hand in hand right there.
Yeah, and I guess I touch on this back with Harbor. Like I said, in any other movie he would be the bully, but he's not. It seems like the movie does a good job of showing that Lance and Mox at least like each other. So I did appreciate that.
Yeah, they lay the groundwork that like they've been friends their whole life.
Exactly. I mean, it's a small towns where everybody knows everybody, I imagine.
So was that your least favorite, the cookout as well, or do you have others?
I think that is my least favorite, yes.
The only thing that comes close to that for me is when Billy Bob collapses in the classroom, like the day or two after the concussion.
Oh yeah, that's a good choice too. I want to change my answer. My least favorite is when Billy Bob collapses during the game and then Harbor goes down and he gets injured. That I don't know what it is about like sports injuries for me, or maybe I've just watched too much wrestling at this point. But when like people get injured, like it legit makes me feel sad because I'm a runner, so I'm technically an athlete, but I'm not an athlete like a football player or a basketball player. And so it's impressive the things that they can do. So when they get injured, like I always like have a piece of my heart that's like, I just hope you're okay. And just like it wasn't Billy Bob's fault. Like the dude literally was concussed.
Yeah.
So it wasn't his fault. But when he goes down, I'm like, oh God, no. It's like watching Darby Allin dive off that ladder onto Jeff Hardy on that one AEW episode. I'm like, oh dear God, no. And it just does not end well for anyone.
Right. And then that kind of like transitions into Billy Bob's feeling bad for himself. He goes out and he's like shooting his old football trophies with a shotgun. Like those scenes kind of go hand in hand that you just feel for this guy. Positive spin now. Favorite scenes, the hook and ladder when it finally works for Billy Bob and he breaks like 18 tackles, even though there's only 11 defenders on the field. And then the birth of Tweeter's end zone dance, which he appropriately names the Tweeter end zone dance. Those are my two favorites. Let's see. What is this movie? This might be the easiest part here. What scene is this movie most known for? It's an easy tie between I Don't Want Your Life and the whipped cream bikini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both important for different reasons.
Yes. And fun fact on the whipped cream bikini, it was actually shaving cream they had to use because whipped cream just doesn't stay on your body once it gets hot or whatever. So it's actually actually that. And then I have to throw a third one in there. I've said this like 3 times today. I don't know if they're the first to do it, but it was the first effective implement in my life, seeing the puke and rally, to which you drink to the point that you throw up, and then you stand up and yell puke and rally and get right back to partying. I've seen it plenty in my day, but this was probably the first time I saw it. So that's impactful for partiers and college students, in the future there.
Yeah, it was gross the part where like Billy Bob like takes his head out from the washing machine, like, you guys are hungry, there's some hot dogs in here. I'm like, that is freaking gross.
And they're playing quarters with I thought it was just shots, but is that how I remembered it? But like Billy Bob is taking a car bomb per quarter. Like you take a car bomb in a night, like your night's done. Like he's taking them. He's had like 3 or 4 in like the 2-minute scene we're watching. So it's like, yeah, no shit, you got to throw up. This one's a little harder for a movie like this. Memorabilia you would most want, I think, Tweeter's jersey or a Coyote helmet. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot of. You can't really take the whipped cream bikini with you. So because of that, there's not a whole lot of memorabilia for this movie, so it's just got to be something probably off a player, I would think.
I think for me, I would want like Mox's jersey.
Yeah. Do you remember the book? They never show the book he's like reading in the playbook, right?
I tried because I'm a big reader, so
Right.
I read a lot of books a year. So I was trying to like see what he was reading. Considering he's going to Brown, I'm sure it was something really smart.
Yeah, yeah. Wouldn't catch on
But
the rye or anything. It probably had a little more than that.
I'm sure it was something like only smart people read.
Mhm. So for plot holes and facts and twists like that, we mentioned the two state titles in 30 years is not the flex that Kilmer probably thinks it is. But the
Yeah.
other one I have is when they go to the strip club and their teacher is working. How does nobody in this town already know this? How is this a secret? Like, there's 200 people in this town. There's 4 places to hang out. The strip club is one of them. How do they not know? How is this a secret?
You know, and I don't want to go super into detail because it happened to me in high school, but I was in a class with a teacher who ended up getting let go because this person was in a relationship with one of the students.
Mm,
And that's as far as I will go. But when
sure.
that whole thing happened, I was just sitting there like, does the school board know of what Miss Davis does in her off hours, or is it just an understanding where as long as it's not on school hours, it's fine. So
Right.
it's weird. Like 99 is 25 years ago, so let's keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Like context and time and other things, but just I was just sitting there like, like like I said, West Canaan is a small town, so this is like the worst kept secret ever. Like, oh, you got Miss Davis. Don't ask about what she does when school closes.
Right. Exactly. One
I
of
mean,
the
she drives
other,
a really nice car too.
yeah,
So,
those pieces kind of connect later in the movie when you see she's driving like a really nice Mustang or whatever it was. One of the other parts, like, because Billy Bob just shines for this movie, right? Like, and rest in peace to the actor, of course. But
yeah.
later in the movie, he tries to ask Miss Davis, "Will you go to the prom with me?" But the words just kind of mush together, and it comes out, "Will you go to prom with me?" And it's just, I don't know why. It's just one of those. It's just Billy Bob doing Billy Bob things. Before we wrap this one up here, this is great. Like I said, this is one of those you can only talk when you talk football movies. This is probably on the Mount Rushmore. If not, it's like the honorable mention. It's just one of those. It's a high school movie done right. It takes its extremes, of course, but I think it's really relatable. Like, everybody's dealt with like an asshole coach at some point. Maybe not to this extent. Everybody's dealt with a teammate or themselves that have been injured. I don't want to say everyone's dealt with a concussion, but if they've played sports long enough, that's been around them in their life for sure. So it's very relatable. Everyone's had expectations to live up to. Everyone's had important things to them that weren't important to other people in their life. It's very relatable on a lot of different levels. Is there anything you would have liked to expand or like change in this movie? The only thing that would have fleshed out Kilmer's character a little more to me, and again, this comes from watching it like a million times. If we would have eventually learned that he played at West Canaan, and he wasn't a great player at the time, so that's why he's so like anal about being like the best coach they've ever had, because he wasn't a great actual player. I thought that would have been something that could have fleshed out the character a little bit more.
My thing, and I'm actually glad you brought this up because my one thing, and it far from kills the movie for me, but the one character, and I'll find his name. The one character who's going to Grambling or is looking to get the scholarship at Grambling.
The running back,
Yeah,
Wendell.
him.
Mhm.
It's heavily implied that like Bud Kilmer is like racist towards him,
Right.
and it kind of comes out of nowhere. You've seen the movie more times than I have, so I might have missed it. But
Well, it's more the sense that he talks about. He's like, I average 133 yards a game, and I only have 3 touchdowns on the year because whenever we get in the red zone, like, he doesn't give me the ball to score. And also, you could also point out he's like the only black guy on the team. So like that's another extra level of proof for that too. So it's more like, he gets on the phone and calls colleges for his other players. He won't get on the phone and call. I think he says like Texas Tech and A&M, which are big schools. And he says, I got Grambling coming to see me. And Grambling, while a prominent HBCU college on a football scale, is a much lower level school. So he kind of feels that if the coach put the effort in that he put in for the other players, he may have a great scholarship to a great university, as opposed to now he's just, I'm going to get what I can get. So there's little breadcrumbs. I don't think he ever takes like the racism over the top, but it's clearly like he looks at him as like his workhorse, and he doesn't. We mentioned before, he doesn't care about really any of the players except for like the moment that he needs them to win. So I think it's a little bit more like that. Other,
I don't know. I guess my stance is that I feel like that could have been touched on a little more. Like if you're gonna have a subplot like that, like explore it. Like I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but
no, I mean
like
it definitely could have been fleshed out a little bit more. I think I agree with you there.
yeah,
My only other thing is like when Kilmer leaves, all the assistant coaches go with him. Apparently, like the whole coaching staff just do a walkout, and to the point where they get to call their own plays, and Lance is on the sideline, and it's heavily implied that Harbor becomes the next coach. That's something that all these years later, if you're going to make a sequel, that maybe that's something that they could get into, is maybe Harbor he's won all these division titles and he's won state twice, and he's going for the third one to break Kilmer's record. Like if they ever made a sequel, that would be, I think, the story you'd want to go with.
I mean, there's definitely grounds to do like a sequel, I would imagine. I mean, John Voight is still alive, so maybe they could do something with him.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, like, unfortunately, Paul Walker is no longer with us, rest in peace. So that character you can't bring back. But James Vanderbeek is still alive. I think you could do something with him, or maybe do something like a Next Generation of sorts.
Yeah.
Keep West Canaan a thing, but then like say have different players, I suppose, and then like say keep the legacy around, kind of like do like Top Gun Maverick. Keep enough of the original parts to where it's recognizable, but do new stuff.
Maybe
guess.
Vanderbeek at this point, because I don't know why I didn't realize. Obviously, Paul Walker's no longer with us. Maybe you do what I said, but it's Vanderbeek is the coach, and maybe they make a statement about like, oh, I haven't seen you since Harbor's funeral or something, and they rope all that in, and Billy Bob's not there, but tweeters are, Scott Kahn's around. Like you said, there's enough pieces that if you do a Next Generation style deal, that you can still get the same flavor of that movie for sure.
Yeah, because at this point in 2024, there is enough pieces of the original puzzle to where it could be like a passing of the torch kind of thing.
Yeah, I could definitely see them doing that. And then obviously, it's not like we've heard any whispers of that, but the 25th anniversary, it's the perfect time. I know the anniversary, like DVD and Blu-ray and stuff, is about to come out and everything. So more people will be talking about Varsity Blues than they have in a while, I'm sure. So definitely the time to do that. But aside from that, I think we covered everything. So Jake, I really want to appreciate your time today. I know you put a lot of videos out and you're a very busy guy, so I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Closer to baseball season, Jake and I have already penciled in the next movie we're going to do together. We're going to leave that a secret for now, but closer to baseball season, I'm going to have Jake back on here. So until then, man, appreciate your time. Good luck with your channel. If you want to plug it real quick before we get out of here, please feel free.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. I'll always make time for this channel. But as for my channel, it's at RyanCam20. I got the 1999 project going on. Like I talked about, I've already covered Varsity Blues. Phil was a part of that review that dropped last Friday. So look out for that if you are so inclined. Along that 1999 project is going to be a year-long thing. For a limited series, I'm doing The Road to Godzilla X Kong, where I'm reviewing all the Godzilla and Kong movies that have been released. As of this recording, I have reviewed everything up to Son of Godzilla, a very weird movie. And then this coming Saturday the 20th, the 20th, will be my review for Destroy All Monsters. So that's dropping. I'm making my way through the Showa era, the Heisei era, and the Millennium era, and then all the way up to the modern stuff. Nice, so be on the lookout for all of that.
Yes, that's RyanCam20. Just a quick reminder for that on all social media platforms. So definitely give that a check out. Did you review Wonka yet?
I have not. I've kind of slowed down.
I want to get in on that. Whenever that comes around, I love that movie. So I'm volunteering if you need somebody for that one.
I've kind of slowed down like reviewing like newer releases because in the movie review space, everybody does it. And try and be a little more different. Like, say, if I wanted to, like, say, for example, I'm going to review Dune Part 2 because I loved the first one, and I'm going to go out of my way to review that.
Makes sense.
So I'm going to be picky and choosy with the ones that I review, like recent stuff.
Makes sense. That makes sense, yeah.
To make a long story short, I enjoyed Wonka very much.
Yeah, definitely. So, but if you ever decide to do that, me and Jody both loved it, so I'd love to talk about that again. But aside from that, again, thank you for your time today, man. Everybody, if you haven't watched in a while, go check out Varsity Blues for the 25th anniversary. And have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching.